Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite football podcast that is still going strong well within the bowels of the offseason. The content continues to dry up, but that isn't going to stop us from recording. And despite the name of the show, we are still less chaotic somehow than the current road conditions and traffic that is happening in Long Island, New York at this very present moment in time. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, hosted by your favorite triumvirate of your favorite troublesome triumvirate trio here, myself and my compatriots of chaos. First of all, on the bottom screen there, judging me with his red shirt and his, is that a fan in the background behind you, Justin? Yes, it is a fan. Justin, our master of games here at the pod. Justin, how we doing?
Better now that I'm not sitting in all that traffic.
Perfect. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I thought of that joke literally 2 minutes before the show started. Thank you to my compatriots. Speaking of which, speaking of my compatriots, speaking of a man who is well versed in chaos, Podfather Rick is here with his Twitter handle right there, ladies and gentlemen. Please follow the Podfather on Twitter.
You know, Jerg, I don't say this very lightly, but you are one lucky son of a gun. Seeing you're in Connecticut and you didn't have to deal with the sinkhole in Lido that the two of us had to deal with. I hope for your sake you never have to deal with that. But enviously, I hope you have a tough time getting out of your apartment tonight.
I mean, I don't. I think Connecticut. I know it's not a small state, but Connecticut, in terms of relevance, it feels like if there's a sinkhole in Connecticut, the whole state would just fall into it. So like.
I mean, you wouldn't be wrong. You wouldn't be wrong about that. It would, So,
yeah,
la-di-da for you then, I suppose.
Yes, indeed. So there is a chance, but while I'm still above ground at the time being, unlike the state of Florida as a whole, and unlike apparently parts of Long Island, the show must go on, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is officially, as the sun shines on basically all three of us here on the show. It is sort of, like I said last week and probably the week before, the dog days of summer when it comes to NFL-based shows like us. So we are going to be finding creative ways to try to keep the conversation going. And we did, courtesy of an article that the Podfather found via our friends, not really friends, at CBS Sports. We are going to be going through a CBS Sports article for the main body of the show today, the meat and potatoes, as I like to call it sometimes. And we're going to go over an article that they churned out of their best players available at each position list. How accurate is it that these players they listed are really the best available at their positions? I mean, maybe good. They're supposed to be paid experts, but as we have proven time and time on this show again, not necessarily every single paid expert is great at their job. Some people with the last name that rhymes with tank. Anyways, as we move on from that, that's going to be the main body of the show. Of course, you all know how the show ends on a weekly basis. We have the rant podium from the Podfather himself, and we're going to get a good one, I feel, this week. But before all of that, we have our usual games because the tagline of the show, guys, fun, football, chaos. Let's start with the fun. Now, normally we get things started with our master of games here. However, we're giving Justin the week off from coming up with the trivia this week. He works hard. He's one of the hardest working men in the sports media business, ladies and gentlemen. So we got to give the games master some time off. That being said, we do still have some games with him. But if you need a trivia fix, ladies and gentlemen, don't worry, because while we may not have Justin's spicy, hot and ready, better than a $5 pizza from Little Caesars trivia, we do have trivia at home. The trivia at home is unfortunately coming from me scouring the internet to look for trivia, which, I don't think it's that bad. So, gentlemen, are you ready?
This is more disappointing than getting a Funko Pop on Christmas that you didn't want.
I need to do trivia. I'm never on this side.
I was gonna say you being on this side is good, but we'll see how this goes. It's like a direct-to-video sequel of All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Oh, please, come on, Rick. Direct-to-video. I equate my brand of trivia compared to Justin. I feel like I am the $5 to $10 movie CDs that would always get sold in like McDonald's and Burger King, when we were growing up, and your mom would just buy it for you so you could watch it at home and not pay like the $30 for Blu-ray.
And by the way, kids, just so you know, video was before DVD, which is before streaming. So there's a long period of time we're talking about beforehand. So into the trivia.
Yes. All right. On to the trivia, and enough of my references here to start off the program. Anyways, here's the trivia. Gentlemen, I really hope neither of you have seen this post, because if you did, well, this is going to be probably the shortest trivia of all time. All right. Despite only starting 5 seasons in his NFL career, Patrick Mahomes has more playoff wins than 8 franchises in the NFL. Putting your malleable brains together, all the brain power there, all those wrinkles between those two heads, give me the 8 franchises.
Wait, okay. Repeat this question again for me.
Patrick Mahomes has more career playoff wins than 8 NFL franchises. Name the 8.
Justin's favorite, the Houston Texans.
They are one of them.
I mean,
The Arizona Cardinals.
Boom. That's 2.
The Falcons.
Correct.
Carolina Panthers.
Correct. 4 for 4.
Okay. Side question, Justin. Not an answer that I have for Jared, but Justin, do you think that this list takes the Cleveland Browns into effect all time, or is it just the new version of the Cleveland Browns, do you think, for this list?
It probably does all time, but that would mean that
That would mean the Ravens.
I don't think that I don't think that the Ravens would be on that list anyways, because they probably have more playoff wins.
I would think so too. Yeah, so probably the new version of the Cleveland Browns, I think, because God, they had some rough years.
Well, weirdly enough, the new version of the Browns is not on this list. I don't get it.
It's okay. So probably what it is, it's probably the Browns and the Browns then.
Yeah. I'd say so.
But I think Justin's right. I think if we're talking about the Ravens themselves by themselves, they definitely have more wins than Mahomes. The Browns in the current generation, no. But if you count all of the Browns from years past, probably them. Probably
which I think is what they're doing, if I had to guess.
I would say so.
Which here's the thing, I don't disagree with the logic. So
yeah. What about the Jaguars?
Correct.
Because they only really had 2 good years of runs. I mean, this year was thanks Brandon Staley, but after that was, So what is that? We have now 5, I think.
Yes. So
5 of the 8.
Just so you guys know, the 5 that you've named out of the 8, you've named the Texans, you've named the Cardinals, you've named the Falcons, you've named the Panthers, and you have named the Jaguars. You are a perfect 5 for 5.
What about the Lions?
I was going to say the Lions too.
6 for 6, like Michael Jordan in the finals.
Yep.
2 more.
Okay, so now I want to see if we can start eliminating some.
Cincinnati?
Well, that's 7, yeah, because they always got there, but they never won a game under Marvin Lewis. That's a good call there. That's a very good call there.
If only Marvin Lewis could win a playoff game, the Bengals probably would not be on this list. For a franchise that's made 3 Super Bowls, and the fact that they're still behind Mahomes.
Justin, what do you think about the Titans?
It's not a bad shout. They don't have like a stellar history there.
But when they were the Oilers back in the 80s, do you think they made – I think they made a lot more significant runs in the 80s when they were the Oilers.
I don't know much about the actual Houston Oilers and that franchise, but what else is there? I mean, I don't think it's going to be an AFC East team. I don't think it's going to be an NFC East team.
No. It's not going to be another NFC North. The Vikings, maybe, but
I was thinking the Vikings, but they have a long history, and they do have. Didn't they make like 4 Super Bowls?
They did.
Yeah.
They did make 4 Super Bowls. Yeah,
I think
they were the original Bills.
Yeah,
that's true.
So I don't think it's going to be any more NFC North. I don't think it's going to be any more AFC North.
The Rams, I don't think so.
The Rams have. I mean, they have a couple Super Bowls.
They have a couple Super Bowl appearances, yeah. So probably not them. The Bucks.
And so I'm thinking maybe the AFC or NFC South is where we got to go. And
Yeah,
it could be the Bucks.
maybe
I
the
want to say
Saints.
the Saints, but the Saints have a ton of playoff wins with Breeze there.
Right.
We said the Panthers. We said the Falcons.
Correct.
We said the Jaguars. We said the Texans.
It wouldn't be the Colts
I don't think
because
it's the Colts either. The Colts
So,
have a big history.
yeah. So I'm thinking it's the Titans / Oilers or Saints or Bucks. I'm thinking.
I don't think it's the Saints.
I don't think it's the Saints either. Now I'm thinking about it. The Bucks seem like a good shot because they had 02.
It seems like the best one out of them.
Yeah.
Brady recently gave them a lot of playoff hope, but he was only there for 3 years.
Right. And
Or 2 years? No, 3 years.
well, they had that run in 02. And the thing is that I remember back in the
Before
90s.
that, there was nothing.
Well, true, but before that in the 90s, they were part of the NFC Central. So they were winning divisions back
Yeah,
then.
but it doesn't matter if you won your division. It matters if you won a playoff game.
No, I agree with you, but I'm just saying they at least got to the playoffs a lot more consistently than we're thinking of.
I think you got it. I think it's going to be the Bucks.
All right, let's go Tampa.
All right, locked in and wrong. So this perfect streak is over.
Yep.
It is not the Bucks.
I had a feeling of what I had a slight feeling it wasn't, but
You know what? We should have taken Jurg's personality into account. You're probably right. It is the Titans.
that's probably this is the Titans. Yeah.
I wish it was. It's not the Titans. Either.
Oh man, come on!
You know how perfect this list would be if
Come
the Titans
on.
were the best team? First off, if it was hypothetically, if it was the Titans, can we just give me props for having a stone face the entire time? When
Yeah,
you
no,
mention them?
seriously, actually, yeah.
What about the Raiders? I feel like the Raiders have a
No,
very good history.
The Raiders had a very good history.
They only have one Super Bowl, right?
I think
to help you, do you guys want the number of playoff wins Mahomes has to help you now?
Yeah,
Because we do the whole only two guesses rule. So now that you've both burned one, Mahomes has 11 career playoff wins. So the remaining franchise does not have as many wins as that.
You know, Justin, I think it's the Jets.
It might be the Jets.
I think it's the Jets because there was one Super Bowl, and then even so I'm trying to think 90, 98, 99 when Testaverde was there, they won one game and got to the AFC title game. And then in the Sanchez years, they won 2 games each, I think it was. So that's 5, right? Including the 9, it's 5. And then they had they made the playoffs in like that strike year, but they didn't win. It might be the Jets.
They won
69, but I think they only won 2 games at max.
They also beat the Chargers once.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s.
Right, and then they lost to was it the Raiders they lost to that year?
How many playoff games were in the Super Bowl year?
I think only 1 or 2 because they were the AFL champions, so they might have been an AFL championship game, which was 1. And then the Super Bowl. So that would be 2 in that year. So we're looking at least 6, maybe 7. They didn't really do anything in the 70s. I know the 80s had good teams, but I don't recall them ever having good seasons in the 80s because they were always trumped by Marino.
I don't know how many. Well, but that doesn't necessarily mean that.
Well, no, but I'm saying like they probably if they didn't get to the playoffs, it was because Dan Marino was there in their division.
Yeah. All right, let's say the Jets.
What's wrong with it? New York Jets.
Nope.
Okay.
So for the people just joining into the podcast, which if you are, the current question here with the trivia, because this is the off-brand offshoot trivia. This is the root seltzer whatever to Justin's Coca-Cola. The trivia question that the boys are answering here. Look, give me a break, Justin. The trivia question that the boys are answering here is Patrick Mahomes has 11 career playoff wins, which is more than 8 franchises. They have named 7 of the 8 franchises. Those franchises so far that they've named: the Houston Texans, the Arizona Cardinals, the Detroit Lions, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Cincinnati Bengals. There's one team left, but they just got 3 wrong guesses in a row.
What about Washington? I mean, I know they were really good in the 80s. Were they good before that?
Yeah, they were.
11 wins is a lot.
Well, yeah, but you got to remember they also won a ton of. Well, okay, maybe.
And then
because they did win a lot of like NFL championship games in like the 40s and 50s. But are we talking?
This is Super Bowl era, right, Jerry?
It is not given the post that I'm reading it off of. It's not saying anything specific in terms of Super Bowl era. Unfortunately,
that's what I'm thinking. Maybe it's not.
I wish it was.
I mean, yeah. Maybe I'm going back to the Saints, man. The Saints, the Vikings. I'm going back to one of those two. See, maybe the Vikings because if we're going to go with Jurg's alternate personality and go with the frauds.
Well, but the Vikings have won a lot of playoff games. I mean,
have they though? I know they got the 4 Super Bowls.
They won 3 or 4.
They made a couple NFC championship games.
Yeah, the Super Bowl years.
But
did they win a game with Dante? Did they win any playoff games with Dante Culpepper and they had Nathan Boss and Chris Carter?
But in order to get there to the NFC Championship game, you only have to win 1 game realistically. So
I mean, no, if they were a wild card team, they may have won 2.
But were they a wild card? I don't know.
I don't think it's the Vikings. It could be. You want to use a guess? It could be the Vikings. I
Well,
don't
I mean, trying to think about like every other team that we haven't spoken about.
So, like I know the Bears have had a lot of play. Like they've won 2 Super Bowls, or they won 1 Super Bowl.
They won 1 Super Bowl.
They've been to 2. Have they done anything outside of those stretches?
There was the they did make another NFC title game with Caleb Haney as their quarterback. Oh god. Oh god.
The infamous Jay Cutler on the sideline game.
Yes. They're a good shout too, because again, I mean, the context is when is this list taking it from? Is it if it's Super Bowl era to now, you disqualify all the 40s and 50s and 60s that were before the Super Bowl era.
Yeah, it makes it harder.
Which again, I wish I had that info, but sadly the post is not giving me much to work with.
It does not do that. I don't know. I think I'm out, honestly. So I think it might be you here, Justin. Might be up to you with this one. I mean, if I had to, I understand the point about Breeze, but I do think the Saints only won with Breeze. I can't recall them ever getting into the playoffs with anybody else.
How many guesses do we have left?
I think one. I think you have the last guess. But if I had to counsel you, I would think
I'm willing to give you guys an extra guess or two because this is fun and I like being on this side.
Here's the thing. What about Philly?
The Eagles. Ooh.
No, because Andy Reid.
Yeah, they did win a lot of playoff games.
They did win a lot of playoff games, and they got
they
got
made
to the
5
Super Bowl.
NFC championship games.
They got to the Super Bowl in the '80s with Dick Vermeil too, so they were still
Seattle?
good in the. No, the Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll run, they were consistently in the.
They didn't win. They only went to 2 Super Bowls. They only won 1.
Beastquake.
Yeah, they won 1 playoff game, and then I remember them having a couple disappointing first round outs.
No, they went to 3 Super Bowls.
They went to 3. They won 2.
No, they won 1. Remember the Heinz Ward year, the Jerome Bettis year, with Matt Hasselbeck.
Oh no! Well, you said the Pete Carroll.
I know, but I'm also
that I know.
Yeah. So
yeah, but to go to 3 Super Bowls means it's a minimum of 6 games.
Possibly, yeah.
Well, no, yeah, it has to be 6 because we're in an era where you have to win at minimum 2.
And then they were a wild card team. They won 7, 8.
I don't know, man.
They won 11. How many playoff games they win before that?
The 80s and the AFC were weird, man. They probably snuck in and won a couple games here and there in the 80s.
I don't think it's the Chargers.
No, I don't think so either. They had 1 Super Bowl in 94 or 95. I don't know, man.
Like, I am willing to give you, if this is wrong, I am willing to give you guys a 5th and final guess, but it will come at a price.
What's the price?
What name your terms?
Rick would have to wear some Jets memorabilia next week if you guys get the 5th guess wrong.
Oh man. All right.
Okay. Fine.
Okay, Rick agrees.
Fine.
You guys have 2
I
guesses.
agree. I agree to it.
I am gonna say let's go with the Saints.
And you guys got the last one. The New Orleans Saints are the 8th and final team that have less playoff wins than Money Man Mahomes. Yeah, low key. But I think to Rick's point, pre-Drew Brees,
there wasn't a lot there.
There was a reason why they were called the Aints for a really long time.
I'm sorry, but I also don't remember Aaron Brooks winning any playoff games.
Yeah, fair.
Do you guys remember the Showdown card games, like MLB Showdown and NFL Showdown?
Vaguely.
I remember collecting the cards.
I had the cards too. I always loved looking at the guys who were on the holographic cards because I thought it was hilarious. Aaron Brooks was a holographic card.
Really?
I was like, why? Why is of all this guy's a holograph card of all people? He's done nothing.
I thought you had to be good to get a holograph card.
That's what I thought too. You know, I thought the game tanked when Chris Weinke was a holographic card too. So, you know.
I mean, hey, have you heard a lot from those cards ever since then?
I don't know where those cards even are, to be honest with you.
And there we are. Chris Winky killed it. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that was a round of trivia. That was your trivia from home. Hopefully better than the homemade food that you have to settle for every single time you go out and you want to get fast food and your family says no. Hopefully that was a little bit better. Hopefully that was up to the standard of Justin's trivia for the most part. Probably isn't, but
a good one.
Like to think I tried.
You tried.
Anyways, gentlemen, that was the end of my game, but the games aren't finished. Justin has a little bit of a something for us.
Yes. So we're not doing the trivia this week because Jurg has so graciously given us his trivia.
The contempt I'm hearing in your voice is just so phenomenal right now, and I love
Not
it.
contempt.
I am here
Trivia
for the
question.
contempt.
It was a good trivia question.
It was. I think that contempt's also more for the roadway, but that's another point for the other day.
That was a rough drive.
I know, man. It was awful.
So as Rick tries to be a crusader of contempt here.
Which division would you rather play in the season? The AFC East or the NFC East?
I mean, the NFC East, I think, is the...
You'd rather play against the NFC East?
I would. I believe Philadelphia, as good as they are, is the only team that I am scared of in the NFC East, realistically speaking.
Really?
Yeah, really. Because the Giants, as good as they were last year, and they were a very good team last year, they do show you ways they can be beaten. And as long as you go in there with a good game plan to stop their offense, you'll have an opportunity to take them down on defense. Enter Geno Smith, who showed us the way last year to do that. So I think they're getting better.
Geno Smith didn't win that game. They fumbled 2 kick returns, but they put them in the red zone.
Hey, it's always Geno Smith.
I'm sorry.
We do not settle for that slander, good sir.
Exactly.
I didn't say anything bad about Geno Smith. I said that.
Muted.
But again, I agree with you. But I think the thing too is that it's also about capitalizing on those opportunities. And Seattle's offense was able to capitalize on those opportunities. So that's, kind of a big deal there. Dallas is a big question mark for me this year because of a brand new offensive system. I think everybody there is kind of on their last legs, if you will. Like, this is the be-all, end-all year for a lot of those guys. And I don't really think they did a whole lot to address the needs that they have had going into this offseason. I don't believe in that. So I think they can be beaten. And Washington is a very young team, is a very hungry team. But if you're starting a rookie quarterback who was drafted in the 5th round, then I think, you can find ways to scheme against them and beat them. If I have a team that's like a general middle of the road team, like a B+ team, I think I can get out of playing the NFC East with at least a 2-2 record, if not 3-1. Whereas if I'm playing everybody in the AFC East, if I'm earning a 2-2 record, I'll be happy because I can see 1-3 is an optimal. I see Buffalo as much of a overrated team that Buffalo can be to some pundits. They're still a very good team, and Miami's explosive. And the Jets, for every fiber of my being that hates the man, they added Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, there is that to behold. The Patriots are the only team that I think you could possibly say could be a team you could walk over. But, their defense always comes ready to play. So, I would rather play the NFC East because I feel like I could get more wins out of that than the AFC East for my money.
So I normally do like to try to play devil's advocate or disagree with Rick entirely because I think that makes more fun. But I gotta agree with him on this one. In terms of who would I rather deal with? I'd rather play the NFC East because, like Rick said, the Eagles to me are the only definitive team in the NFC East that I fear, and the only one that I think will beat me by 2 scores. I've already made it clear I'm not the biggest fan of Dallas going into the season for a number of reasons. I don't see how this team got really leaps and bounds better than last year, which is kind of sort of supposed to be the goal of an offseason, for the level they were at and the way they lost last year. Dak, to me, has a lot to prove because last season, it wasn't just a bad season for him. You could argue for quarterbacks that actually played a significant amount of time, he was one of, if not the worst thrower of the football in terms of just tossing interceptions. His interception numbers were bad last year, and that's bar none. So you have that. You have a running game, which, look, I'm a fan of Tony Pollard. I think we consensus can say that on the show. But we have to see how it's going to change, because the whole thing is, when it comes to backups becoming starters, it goes one of two ways. I know that might sound obvious, but it legitimately goes one of two ways. Either they're going to take the reins, hit in stride, and take the job for himself, and Tony Pollard's going to have a 1,400-yard season, or he's only going to put up 700 yards on not that efficient carry and miss 7 games due to injury. I hate to say that because it's unfair, yes, but that's kind of how it goes in all of sports. Backups that go on a run and supersede the starter, not all of them end up playing better than the guy. Now, granted, injured Zeke Elliott that hasn't been 100% in like 5 years, or current Tony Pollard, I probably would go with current Tony Pollard. I'm not saying Dallas made a wrong decision there. They made the right one. But let's not be so quick to say it's going to pan out the way we think it will. There's a massive difference between being number 2 or 3 on a team scouting report and now being elevated higher up in terms of who's going to be watched out for. So I think there's that. I think the offensive line is good, but are you going to get another good year out of their first round pick? What's his name? Smith, I think. Tyler Smith from last season. Is he going to shock us the way he did last year? He had a really good rookie season. I think he was one of the rookies way back before the draft when we were saying guys who did good. I said that he did great, and I stand by that. But will he do that once again? Are we going to see a sophomore slump out of him? Is Tyrone Smith going to be able to be a modicum of healthy for this season? Because part of the reason why Smith got all that amazing playing time, especially at left tackle, was because Tyrone Smith is out. That offensive line isn't necessarily better without him there. Let's be real here. And again, that defense, there's good pieces, but there's still a little bit boom or bust, especially in that secondary. It's either interception or 20-yard bomb. And I need a little bit more consistency out of that secondary. I know Dan Quinn, a lot of people were saying, oh, he could have had opportunities to be a head coach somewhere, this, that, and the third. I think he's much better as a defensive coordinator. I think he is definitively one of those guys that should just stay a DC and not become a head coach again, in terms of me having the confidence in him. But that defense does need to take another stride this season. So Dallas, I'm not scared of. Can they beat you? Yes. But I'm not scared of them. I've been saying this since last season. The Giants, to me, were very much a team where a lot of things had to go their way. And they played a style and they played a system that was very much fallible, that we started to see in the second half of the year be picked apart by certain teams. And if it wasn't for the frauds that they faced in the playoffs, they would have had 0 playoff wins this year. And the Commanders, do I really need to say more? The one good thing about the Commanders this next season is ultimately going to be the fact that Dan Snyder is no longer the owner. And I mean, that's already a W, actually, if you ask me. So you already have your win there, Washington. I look at the AFC East. Yes,
Rick will not pick them to win the division this year.
Very true. All that being said, if you look at the AFC East, while we have all made it clear, and I think this show was probably one of the ones before most people did, to point out the fact that we saw some chinks in the armor of what the Bills were last season, they're still a really good team. They're still a very top-heavy, talented team, and they're going to be the preseason favorite to win this division, as they should. You have the Miami Dolphins, who they returned that spearheaded offensive attack that if they can continue to be great, and if Tua can be healthy and not, be tackled beneath the dirt offensive line, show up more, then that'll be great, especially considering the weapons they have in Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Now, Jalen Waddle needs to show up in the playoffs, but he's still really good. You have a Dolphins team that, if their defense can take a step back up to what they were 2-3 years ago, because again, while his tenure as a whole was flawed and while he didn't mesh with Tua, goddamn, Brian Flores could coach a really good defense. And the Dolphins were terrible last season. That's why they hired old man Vic Fangio to come in and settle things, as he tried to find an apartment in Miami, but he apparently couldn't because it's goddamn too expensive down there, which honestly, I agree. And then you have the New York Jets, who, I said this once, I'll say it again, Aaron Rodgers definitively makes that team better than last season. And I'm not going to get good night's sleep the night before facing a 4-time MVP. I'm just saying that much. And then the Patriots, I agree. While they are probably the worst, well, they should be the worst team of that division in theory, they're still better than what the worst in the NFC East is. And there's still Bill Belichick there. And if there's one thing I would be not happy about facing that team, it's the fact that they got 2 really good corners, because Jones had a really good year for them last season, and they got Christian Gonzalez. Again, you let a number 1 corner fall into the hands of Bill Belichick. Like, why? Why do you do this to us? Why? So ultimately speaking, I would much rather play the NFC East than the AFC East. I think one definitive powerhouse team there that I would have to be worried about being trampled by, like a herd of elephants, compared to potentially 3, but I'll tentatively say 2 for now in the AFC. That in and of itself outweighs it.
All right. Well, that'll lead me to a good fact or fiction. The AFC East is the strongest division in football.
Ooh. Okay. That makes things interesting.
It's a really good question. It's a damn good question.
They haven't done anything yet. You still have to go out there. You still have to put it on the field. But on paper, right now, the AFC East is looking very strong. Is there a team? Is there a division that is more complete and better overall?
Well, Rick, let's start the elimination game here. Let's make things easier for us thought process wise.
Nobody in the South.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to start with the South.
Bye, South.
Sayonara. NFC North, Gonzo Alonzo.
Yep, that's fair.
NFC West,
No,
probably gone.
No, yeah, probably.
The Cardinals really hold them down this season.
They did 2 years ago, but this year,
this year, no. This year, no.
This year, no. So we've eliminated, and we already said the NFC East, so we could really eliminate the entirety of the NFC.
Yes. I think the AFC North has potential, but I don't know. I know Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are an incredible 1-2 punch in that division, but you got to see what you have in Pittsburgh and Cleveland, because Deshaun Watson, hope to God that he's terrible again, because, justice should find no man like him ever. And Kenny Pickett, we'll see how he does the second year. So I almost want to knock them out at this. So it leaves the AFC West.
And in that division, you have the reigning defending Super Bowl champions.
Yep.
You have a team that most people would project to make the playoffs yet again this season and hopefully win a playoff game and not chuck a 27-point lead in the Chargers.
Yep.
And again, the tricky part is it's then the next two teams that we need to ask questions about. It's the Broncos and the Raiders. And your perception of who do you think will be the bottom team in that division this year compared to the bottom team in the AFC is ironically the team that's trying to copycat the Patriots, arguably in the Raiders.
Well, you know what's so beautiful, though, about how the NFL schedules, how they kind of do things like this? We're talking about a division that's playing the division. And so if you're the AFC West, do you boast the reigning, defending, undisputed Super Bowl heavyweight champions of the world in my tribal chief, Patrick Mahomes? So you want to be the best division? Go beat them. Go beat them. So I think it's fiction because I think that as good as the AFC East is together, I think that you still have to prove that you are better than the best of the best, which is Patrick Mahomes. I think that the sub players underneath, the Chargers are good, but we got to know which Mensa scholar Brandon Staley shows up for the game on the sideline. The Broncos could be good because Sean Payton's there, but is Russell Wilson going to hold them back? Spoiler alert, yes. And then the Raiders, listen, we are one bad foot injury away from Tom Brady playing for the Raiders.
And being an owner.
And then going to Fox next year as a commentator. We thought we were rid of him, and now he's back again.
He always haunts us.
I know, right? But in all seriousness, again, I think as good as the AFC East is together, it's all paper because Buffalo showed they were the class. Miami fought through their injuries to get into the playoffs. The Jets added Aaron Rodgers, so we'll see how that translates. And the Patriots are going to be the Patriots. But if you want to beat the best, go beat the best. Go beat the Chiefs. If Kansas City goes this year 3-1 against the AFC East, it will prove definitively that no one's touching them. No one. So I think that's kind of the way that you have to look at it is if you're going to say you're the strongest division, well, who's the strongest guy? Go there and push him over and see what happens. Patrick Mahomes is getting right back up and pushing you back even further. And then Travis Kelce's going to come off the top rope with a flying elbow. And God knows what happens with that. So.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, it's... It is tough for me because Rick goes with the ideology there of to be the man, you got to beat the man. And damn it, do I love my wrestling ideology.
Woo!
Woo! But I will say fiction for now, but it's very tentative because it all comes down to those bottom teams. It all comes down to, I think, the Jets Broncos and the Chargers Dolphins matchups. Because ironically, the Chargers Dolphins, the two teams that will forever be linked for a while here in regards to Herbert and Tua, the back-to-back selections that were made. And then you have the Broncos and the Jets, where it's ironically at the top, it's two similar situations, just one player, not player per se in terms of actual position playing, but one key figure being different. Because on one side in the Jets, you have the head coach that's been there for well over 2 years now, and now you have the quarterback coming in to help. And with the Broncos, you have the quarterback that's been there for a year, failed spectacularly last year, and now you bring in a new head coach, someone that you are hoping is able to fix everything. So it's on one side, you have a head coach trying to fix everything. And on the other side, you have the quarterback trying to fix everything. And then at the bottom of each division, you have the Patriots, and then you have the 95-cent store Patriots. They're not even good enough to be considered 99-cent store. It's 95-cent store Patriots in the Raiders. So yeah. It all depends. And although I will say if Tom Brady does come out of retirement to play for the Raiders, this will quickly become fact.
Well, I mean, you know it's going to happen because Brian Hoyer is the backup. So obviously Brian Hoyer is going to be the backup to Tom Brady, as per usual.
Is Jarrett Stidham still there?
Jarrett Stidham's not there. He's on the Cardinals now, I think. Or he's I don't know where he is, but he's not on that team anymore.
While we fact check where Jarrett Stidham is.
Jarrett Stidham is on the Broncos, believe it or not.
Oh, he's going to take Russell Wilson's job.
Of course. Yeah, no, he's there. He's there. And by the way, Jets Broncos is going to be for a custody battle for Nathaniel Hackett, obviously.
Of course, makes sense.
Put his contract on a ladder, you know.
I think the Broncos will let the Jets go over on that one.
I think so too. But that is just like, you know what? No, you take him. No, you take him. You take him. You take him.
Oh, Lord above. Man. But ultimately, I think it's fiction for now. But I don't think because normally when it comes to all this, on paper conjecture stuff, I think it can be a little bit ridiculous at times. But this is one of the cases where I don't think it's that ridiculous. To where I think the AFC East surpasses everyone in the NFC side. Like, I don't think it's even close. And I think their only competitors are within that conference, which is funny because most likely the best team in the AFC East, whoever that may be, come the divisional round, is going to have to face one of, if not both of who we see to be the most important teams in that conference right now, which have been the Chiefs and Bengals for the last 2 seasons. So it's going to be interesting. For now, fiction, but could very be quickly proven to a fact, depending on a bunch of different factors. One of them being, does Tom Brady join the Raiders?
Exactly.
So, yeah. All right, Justin, beautiful job with Fact or Fiction. Beautiful job with the games. Sends a feature. It's like in songs where there's the FT at the end. Feature appearance by myself in the games this week. Before we continue to get going here, I just want to double check and make sure that all bases are covered. Rick, do we have a mind-blowing fact of the week? Are we taking a week off?
I do have one. It's actually going to be a nice and short one for you.
Okay.
Giants owner Steve Tisch is an Oscar winner because he was the producer on Forrest Gump.
Wait.
Yeah. So Steve Tisch is actually a pretty well-known Hollywood film producer. His first movie was called Outlaw Blues, which starred Peter Fonda and Susan St. James in 1977. However, in 1983, he directed a pretty well-known movie that was the breakout role for one Tom Cruise, which was Risky Business. So Steve Tisch has had a hand in Risky Business and in Forrest Gump. And actually, if you keep going down his list of movies that he's had a hand in, you have The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith from 2006. You have the entirety of the Equalizer trilogy as well. And then you have something coming up called Masters of the Universe, which was the movie based upon the He-Man toys from Mattel. So Steve Tisch, believe it or not, yes, 1994, Forrest Gump came out, and he was one of the 3 producers on that. So he has an Academy Award for Best Picture, along with the Super Bowl trophies.
Wow.
Pretty impressive.
Wow. So there is someone A-list related in Hollywood that has some ties to the NFL.
Well, it's funny. Like, if you think about the New York Giants, you think about Wellington Mara. I mean, his daughter, I believe, was Kate or Rooney, one of the 2 Maras, or maybe both of them. So they have a connection to Hollywood that's pretty deep. But I'm surprised as anybody that I saw. I looked at Forrest Gump. I saw, wait, Steve Tisch, like the Giants, like EVP, Steve Tisch, like and he also appeared in Seinfeld in an uncredited role at some point. So
there we go. Well,
his character was Man in Back.
Man.
So, yes.
Well, it does make sense because ultimately, when he was drafted, the joke about Daniel Jones was that Daniel Jones is the actor that you would hire to play Eli Manning in an Eli Manning biopic. So,
well, there you go.
It 1,000% makes sense.
I figured I'd also go back to a football once that Justin wouldn't go soaring up a storm like Andrew Jackson's parrot did last week. So that was
People who have never watched the show are going to be so confused about that.
I know. well, that's what you get. You get mind-blowing facts about football or other things.
Yes.
Next week, clouds.
Before we continue, ladies and gentlemen, I do stress this. Try to watch some of the previous episodes because you're going to be lost like a sailor out in sea.
Oh no!
If you
this is not a show you can pick up at episode 34. You have to go back to episode 1 and then keep going all the way through. Yeah.
I would say a good starting point would be our Christmas episode.
No, because the Christmas episode's a callback to every episode before that.
Exactly.
Which is funny.
Well, that's true.
But you can't start with that.
It's the season finale to the new season.
I did wear a lovely blue blazer, so I mean, you could do that too. So that works.
Ultimately, the way I see it, despite the fact that the NFL season continued after that episode, was that our Christmas episode will always be our personal season finale, boys. That's the way I view it.
God, it's like WrestleMania is the end of the year, even though it's not the actual end of the year. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly.
I'm there for it. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Look, we're making up the rules as we go here. We have no idea what we're talking about.
On the fly. Let's go.
On the fly. Absolutely. This show was built on the fly, so why not? All right, ladies and gentlemen. So as we finish all the fun, and there was some perfect football injecture at the end there, let's continue with the football here. As mentioned, our friends at CBS, who also helped provide the base of the trivia that I asked earlier, gave us a nice article that the Podfather himself found last week. And it is a free agency-based article here based off of the best available free agents remaining because it is the dead time of the offseason. let's keep it real here. We are very much there. This is the equivalent of July and August for Major League Baseball, sans the All-Star game and the Home Run Derby and trade deadline. Because, good Lord, who else wants to go watch an August 3rd regular season game between the Minnesota Twins and the the Colorado Rockies? Who
the Oakland A's are 12-47. Let's go watch them.
That too. Yeah. I saw a tweet literally, I think it was yesterday, that the Portland Pickles have gotten more people to come watch their games total this season than the Oakland A's. I don't know if that's factually true, but I hope it is.
I think the Brooklyn Cyclones have done that as well, believe it or not. So
probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
And maybe some college baseball teams in Division II, potentially, done that as well. So
yeah. None located in New York, though, right?
No, none.
Okay. Anyways, moving on from that. So we have the article out in front of us. We're going to go quickly position by position here. We're going to see who they said they believe is the best remaining player at that position. We're going to quickly agree/disagree, and then we're going to go into the conjecture of whether it be our picks or the pick that they have. Where will that person end up? So let's start with the fun of it. Let's start with the quarterback position, boys. The best free agent quarterback remaining, according to CBS Sports, is Carson Wentz. Do we agree or disagree?
How could we agree when Bill Barnwell's favorite free agent, Teddy Bridgewater, is out there?
Yeah. I mean,
there's a reason that he's got the Jets ranked as the 23rd best offseason because they paid so much for Aaron Rodgers when Teddy Bridgewater would have been perfectly fine.
This is rant podium material right here. No.
I'm getting tired of all Jets bullshit.
So listen.
When are we gonna get Rick swearing on this show?
Never, not a chance ever.
It's gonna happen.
Nope, never gonna happen.
Look,
never.
I don't know what it's gonna take, but we'll get Rick swear on the show, ladies and gentlemen.
Never gonna happen. It's
try. Funny because as soon as they go off, he swears like a sailor.
I know, and that's we have to do our own Patreon where we have like a behind the show where I just go crazy, but never.
No, that'll be the tell-all episode where nothing really counts, and that's when Rick can swear because it technically won't count per canon.
I still will not swear because we're still live on YouTube. In any extent, demonetization.
So if we just go to Twitter,
maybe. Teddy Bridgewater, I think, is a better prospect, but I believe that the more injuries he's racked up, the more concerning it's been for him. So I would probably put him just slightly below Carson Wentz in this side, even though I'm not really a fan of Carson Wentz, as you saw last year with my Taylor Heineke. He had a lot of
injuries last year, Carson Wentz, didn't he?
He did too, but I think Teddy had the concussion as well, and Teddy had the he's still coming back from that horrific leg injury too. So they're both very injured prospects, but I feel like Carson Wentz is probably a little bit more apt to come back and play from those injuries, then Teddy might take a year off or something like that. So I can see either way. I will disagree with Justin just for this one moment, and I will agree with the list of my newfound friend Jeff Kerr and say Carson Wentz.
I couldn't tell if Justin was being serious with the whole Teddy Bridgewater thing or not, considering you mentioned Barnwell.
Well, you know.
Well, because I'm tired. Everyone's trying to like nitpick like the small like I don't understand all these experts saying that the Jets are not a contender because they didn't draft a left tackle in the draft. I'm sorry, because they didn't draft the 4th left tackle off the board, they're no longer a contender to win a Super Bowl, even though they were 8-9 last year and lost their last 6 games in a row due to quarterback play, but traded for a Hall of Fame quarterback. Listen, even if he has the exact same season as last year, even if he has a little bit worse, he still was a better quarterback than they had. It's still an improvement. They would have made the playoffs with that style of play. I don't understand how you can't say that with a top 5 defense, the weapons that they have and added, and all this, and adding Aaron Rodgers, and you somehow got worse. You somehow had a bad offseason because you didn't draft the 4th left tackle on the board,
which they would have been crucified for had they done that.
Because Anton Harrison went 27th instead of 15th. I think a lot of the conjecture with writers has to do similarly to when the writers did not like to put Albert Bell into the Baseball Hall of Fame. If the writers just don't like a team, they're not going to say anything positive about the team.
Look, I can understand if you turned around and said to me, "Look, the Jets did all this stuff, but they're the Jets." That makes more sense to me than all the BS that people are spinning now about how, well, they didn't draft a tackle, they're not going to make the playoffs this year. Oh, they should. They gave up optional second that could be a first next year. That's too much for Aaron Rodgers. Shouldn't have done it.
Hot take: Barnwell despises Samini. Jurg, you got to work on that because I know where you work. Barnwell despises Samini. Got to work on that.
You think I have the connections to figure that out?
I think you can do anything you set your mind to, man.
All right, well, all right. So Justin, Teddy Bridgewater or Carson Wentz?
I would take Teddy Bridgewater, I think. I think there's nothing in Carson Wentz. I don't ever expect him to be the player he once was again. There's some sort of salvageability in Teddy Bridgewater, although, again, I don't think you're winning anything with him. But he's been the picture of consistency more recently than Carson Wentz was. And to be fair, none of them have really been all that consistent. But if you have the right coaching in place and you have the strong enough offensive weapons and line, they showed it in New Orleans. He is a very serviceable quarterback. He's not the guy,
right?
But he's not terrible. He can win you some games. I don't see that for Carson Wentz.
I'm with you. I agree with Justin. I ultimately have Teddy Bridgewater over Carson Wentz for myself personally. And this kind of goes into the idea of where do we think they could land. For me, I think Carson Wentz should retire because Carson Wentz does not give off to me backup quarterback. He gives off to me like a guy that believes he should be a starter on one of the 32 teams. And I'm gonna be real with you, my guy. That's not the case. It's just not.
I have a disassociative thought with that. Arizona needs a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Murray's out. Wentz is your short-term option because McCoy's not really your answer. I think Carson Wentz is more of an upgrade than Colt McCoy would be at the quarterback room, at least for now.
Well, that's not a high bar.
It's not a very high bar, but I think he's better. And so I think that would probably be a better instance for him. So, that would be his one last shot, basically.
Listen, you guys are forgetting we might have a free agent Jimmy Garoppolo coming up.
No, but that's Tom Brady. We all know Tom Brady's starting.
Tom Brady going to
for these other teams. For these other teams.
If
what we're talking about. If Jimmy Garoppolo is cut by the Raiders or his contract is voided, I can't imagine that he's going to go back to the Raiders on a new contract. He'll just go somewhere else.
No, it definitely won't happen. Especially because it's all based on failing or passing physicals. So he definitely wouldn't get another big deal if he fails. It would be a second failed physical since he signed that contract.
He wouldn't get a big deal for that. Not a chance. Not a chance.
He'll get something.
No, he'll get something, but it wouldn't be the 3 years, 67 or something $million.
He won't get that money.
I think Jimmy G, if he were to go back in free agency, let's say on the second failed physical, I think he would get a bloated 1-year deal. 1 year, $10-15 million with $5 million in extra bonuses if he actually plays well, something like that.
Yeah.
So assuming let's just assume Jimmy G stays in Vegas. Bold, I know, but let's assume that somehow happens. For me, where Teddy B could go, I mean, ironically, you mentioned them already, Rick, but Arizona, I think, is the hotbed of hey, we need an actual starting quarterback here. And I think they need just something better than what they have in the room at the very present moment in time. So I think Bridgewater or Wentz to Arizona would make sense. It would ultimately be the perception of Gannon, a.k.a. the one-year head coach that's going to be there because he ain't got that much of a future there. So I think either of them could make sense. Justin, is there anywhere else you could see Teddy Bridgewater going?
Yeah, there's a few places. Off the top of my head,
I have two teams in mind as well. If you want to think about it a little bit, Justin.
yeah, you can go, Rick.
Baltimore and Seattle. Their quarterback rooms are weaker, and Bridgewater represents an automatic upgrade as a backup QB. And if you're Lamar Jackson or Geno Smith, I think you'd want better insurance than Anthony Brown or Drew Lock. So having a guy like Teddy Bridgewater who knows how to run an offense, you get him on a cheap deal, and he'd be at least taken care of in a good system with two good to very good head coaches. I think those are good spots for him.
I think the Seahawks and Ravens, even not thinking of the quarterbacks, they would just love an upgrade to those quarterback rooms.
I would say maybe Washington or Tampa.
Yeah, Tampa does need help too.
Tampa probably use the help. I don't believe in Baker, and from the reports coming out of their training camp, most people don't either.
Yeah, have you seen some of the videos that have been released? He's over or underthrowing guys.
Yeah,
and Washington is one of those guys where I think that Teddy Bridgewater's veteran leadership and his presence will be very welcomed. I think that every team he's been on, everyone has nothing but the best to say about Teddy Bridgewater. His work ethic, his personality, his character. And for a young quarterback room there, I think that would be a very big help.
Random aside about Teddy Bridgewater, when he eventually retires from football, what do you think he should do? Coach or analyst on TV?
Ooh, coach.
I've never heard him talk.
That's why I'm thinking coach, because I don't know how he would be on TV.
He might have a great television voice.
Yeah, I mean, he might be shepherded down the card to like a third string CBS Sports, like they'll cover UNLV versus Colorado State in football sort of thing. But I think he's definitely a better coach. I will say too, one other thing about Teddy going to Baltimore, it creates a very nice Louisville dynamic because both he and Lamar Jackson went to Louisville, so that would be a nice little like tie-in for those two guys to kind of work together on that end.
And the two best Louisville quarterbacks in probably school history being together in a quarterback room.
Yes, agreed.
Well, I would just say they already re-signed Snoop Huntley, so
that means nothing. He was a Pro Bowl. He was a Pro Bowl alternator through 2 touchdown passes. He's a joke.
They believe in him, Rick.
Yeah, okay. Well, Russell Wilson believes in himself, and see where that got him.
And people in hell believe they deserve a cup of ice cold water every once in a while, but it's not the case. Anyways, moving on the position list. Let's run to the running backs here on this list. So according to CBS Sports, lads, the best available running back in free agency still is Ezekiel Elliott. Do we agree or disagree?
You're torn between 3 guys, I think. Elliott, Hunt, and Fournette. So it's really, what do you like the best? And I think of the 3, I'll say Zeke's the best of the 3, I think, that are the top tier. But literally speaking, there's no discernible difference between any of those 3 that I could say, so swap one out for the other and you get the same result.
Well, there's positional flexibility with Zeke. You got a backup center there. You know,
there's no positional flexibility.
Get that joke.
None. Oh my God, Jesus.
I'm gonna say no. Just by value of what I think he's got left in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say I would probably sign Hunt out of the 3 of the guys. He seems, I know he's had his injury issues also, but he seems to have when he's on the field have had the most success as of recently. I know Zeke had a decent season last year. I know
Fournette.
Yeah, Fournette had a good year last year, but I don't see these guys as having like a ton left going for them. I do think that Kareem Hunt being I mean, I guess they're all a similar age, but Kareem Hunt does more on the field. I think he's got a little bit less wear and tear on him than these guys do. And if I'm going to sign a guy to catch the ball out of the backfield and play running back, I think that Hunt is the way to go at this time.
If Seattle had not drafted Charbonnet, I think Hunt to Seattle could have been a spot because you're talking about a stable organization for him and being the 2 to Kenneth Walker's 1, where Walker is the bell cow back and Hunt is the guy that is able to do both things. Like I said, had they not drafted the young gun out of UCLA, because now I think them horses is ready to run in Seattle, to say the very least. So unfortunately, I am with Justin again on this one. I think the ability of Hunt to do both is a little bit more valuable. And I think as we start to continue, and again, I love running backs. I want all running backs to get paid. But I think between Zeke, Fournette, and Kareem Hunt, which I believe they are all the same age at this point, if not, they're separated by just like a handful of weeks and months. I think Hunt's ability to do both gives him a little bit more value compared to Fournette, who he's never really been an elite pass. Like people tried to say he's a better pass catcher than what we give credit for. Like, I'm sorry, he's not. And Zeke has always just been a bell cow, like run first running back. And he just doesn't have the same pop that he did earlier in his career when he was leading the league in rushing yards and carries and all that throughout the first 4 years. So I would also go with Kareem Hunt. In terms of team fit for these guys, what are we thinking here with some of these options? Are we sending any of these guys to Arizona or Tampa for a year?
Well, I think Zeke would be a great fit for the Albany Empire. Have Antonio Brown be the owner and have him go to that team. No, but in all seriousness,
well, considering alleged history of what they've done, you think Kareem Hunt would be a better fit with the Albany Empire?
Maybe, I don't know. This is tough because the running back room is always a little more difficult, and you have to kind of understand, who's got a spell for who. Buffalo's running back room doesn't scare me. And it should if they want to be a team that would be considered one of the best in the AFC. So, but the question really is, do you think that one of these guys is going to be the guy to add there? They're retreads in a sense. So do you really think that those guys will mesh well? I know we haven't spoken about it, but a guy like Myles Gaskin, I think, would do better in Buffalo in that grouping with like Damian Harris in that group because he's younger and he could definitely split the ball a little bit more. But these 3 guys seem like they want to be feature backs more so. Even if their prime's behind them. So maybe Cincinnati because Joe Mixon is there, but you need somebody else. And I don't think the Bengals really have another person there.
Right.
They
lost P. Ryan in the offseason.
Right. And a guy like a Fournette or an Elliott would probably do well in that system. I don't know if Mixon and Hunt are too similar to put them on the same team, but I don't really think that's really a cause for any concern. I would probably say Cincinnati would probably be a good number 1 option for them. If I'm thinking about an outside the box team that might need a running back of some sort here, what about the Rams? Cam Akers hasn't been fully healthy. You don't really know who else they've got. They're rebuilding. I mean, they took a guy in the 6th round from Ole Miss's TCU, Zach Evans, to be a running back, but they don't have a lot of depth. And they also don't really have a lot of certainty as to where they're going.
Right.
So, it could be a chance for one of those guys to really feature and recapture that glory. Maybe get them on a 1-year deal. If they can find the glory, run for 800, 900 yards in a season, maybe show they have a little more value. And then as all once good running backs do, end up on the Patriots because that's what Bill Belichick does. Corey Dillon, say hi.
I was actually going to say here, Rick, so I think I was actually thinking the Rams for Kareem Hunt specifically because I think they need just more offensive talent there that can catch the football because if it wasn't Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford just wasn't looking at anybody else last season. Nobody else existed to throw the ball to other than Cooper Kupp, it felt like. I think they need another pass-catching talent. I think Kareem Hunt can be that while also providing the punch in the running back space. In regards to, it's again funny you mentioned the pass because if they're between Zeke and Fournette, who do you think would fit better right now with Bill Belichick?
Zeke,
you think so?
I think so. I think
it matters.
I don't think it matters either, but I think of the two, I think Zeke because I feel like Leonard Fournette will probably have a little more trouble in that running system because that room is definitely crowded. Leonard Fournette's the type of guy who you think, like you said, you think he's going to be really good, but he probably will be on the chart lower than Pierre Strong and Ramondre Stevenson, Whereas Zeke will probably
both
distance
would be
himself.
below Ramondre, but I feel like Fournette's pass catching ability would make him more, because you need to be multidimensional when you play for Bill Belichick.
Very
Yeah,
true.
I suppose that's fair.
Who do you have for Kareem Hunt, Justin?
Where?
Yeah.
Fit?
Yeah.
Kansas City.
Ooh.
Kansas
back
City needs a
home.
running back.
The
They could
prodigal
use
son.
help. What'd you say?
The prodigal son.
Yes. I could also see him in Pittsburgh, who I think could use some backup again for Najee Harris. But those are the best spots for him. If they don't want to go with Kareem Hunt because of the obvious issues, I could see them going either one with Fournette or Elliott. But I think Kansas City needs a running back. I think they need one for cheap. I don't know if they get any of these guys because they'll probably get a little bit more money, but it's something that they have struggled looking for a long time since Kareem Hunt. And it's something they could use. And I think so with Pittsburgh too, because Najee Harris had a bad year last year. He seems to have been on the decline all his career. He started off really strong, and he's been kind of slowly getting a little bit worse in his short career. He's had some injury issues. They have worked on that offensive line, and they are expected to make some moves this year with a second year quarterback Kenny Pickett maybe taking a step forward. So I think they need some help, and they need some depth on that running back room.
Yeah, I love the Kansas City poll too for Kareem Hunt. I think even if they don't get Kareem Hunt, they're still in line for somebody. I know I mentioned Gaskin, but I know there's other guys that are out there. Mark Ingram could be a nice little fit there. J.D. McKissick from Washington. Amir Abdullah is also on the market as well.
He's still in the league.
He's still in the league apparently. So yeah, I mean, there's
And
I think you're right.
They have Pacheco there, but he gives me more of a James Starks vibe. Let's get a main back in there. And,
Ooh, Buffalo. Yeah. I like that. I agree with that too.
That boys. All right, moving on. Let's go to the wide receivers. Now, obviously, the article has DeAndre Hopkins available, but we talked a lot of DeAndre Hopkins last week. So if you want DeAndre Hopkins talk, please check back to last episode.
Indeed.
So other wide receivers that we could name here as arguably the best available. Now, I'm actually going to quickly go first here because I don't know if you guys would necessarily say he's the best available, but I want to see this guy get rebuilt and his reputation redone on a new team. And I already have the team in mind for him. Kenny Golladay. And I think him in Arizona would be interesting because he's different from the other wide receivers in that room. He's bigger than the guys they have there of Rondell Moore and Hollywood Brown. And he would be a different fold into the offense that they're going to need now that DeAndre Hopkins is no longer going to be there. Look, let's be real here. The Cardinals are probably going to be the worst team in football, arguably. That being said, you just need talent there. You got to field semi-NFL talent. And if we are as down as, for the most part, we are on Kenny Golladay after what was a Giants tenure where he only caught, one more touchdown than all three of the guys on the show put together, then we need to just put him somewhere where there's literally zero expectations. And why not put a guy for zero expectations on a team with zero expectations? That's the way I see it. I think a one-year deal in Arizona, he gets to try to rebuild his reputation on a team where there's plenty of snaps to go around. There's not a wide receiver one on that team. Is there a wide receiver two on that team, if we're being honest? I mean, Hollywood Brown, maybe. I think that's my immediate one. Kenny Golladay to the Cardinals would be my go. He may not be the best receiver, but I want to be a little bit different with the options that we have available here.
Sammy Watkins, New York Giants.
That's going to be an amazing first week.
Just for week one. That's it. That's all you need, just for week one.
So they're going to sign him to just a 1 week deal?
1 week deal. Yep. And then bring him Laquan Treadwell for the rest of the week. Rest of the season. Similarly to what you were saying, I think N'Keal Harry is a guy that I would say give him another shot. The guy's only 25. I know it hasn't worked out in a couple of spaces, but he's a guy that I think is worthy of an opportunity somewhere to reclaim his career in some capacity. And when you think about guys who went and reclaimed their career somewhere, you, of course, got to go to Seattle and go catch balls from Geno Smith because, let's be honest here, that's the only answer to this question. Although I could maybe see him going to Indy as well. I think him and Michael Pittman could make a good 1-2 combo for Anthony Richardson to possibly throw the ball to. But again, it just seems like it's a terrible thing to waste talent at 25 years old to not have him go somewhere else. It'll be his third team. I understand that, but I think he's worthy of another shot.
I like it. I like it. Justin, who you got?
How about Kenny Galladay getting some revenge and going to the Dallas Cowboys?
Ooh.
I think that would be a good fit there. I don't really believe in Michael Gallup and his ability to stay healthy. I mean, even when he's on the field, he was okay. But if they really want an electric third receiver, not third year. He's been there for longer than 3 years. An electric third receiver there, and a guy that can really make things happen in the depths of that lineup. Why not bring in a big body burner like Kenny Galladay?
Oh, okay, I like it. And Rick mentioning N'Keal Harry. I'm with you, Rick. This is a young guy who went into a position early with the Patriots that really, if you look at hindsight 2020, he probably shouldn't have been a first-round pick in that draft.
No.
I think we may need to look back and think of him as one of the many draft picks that Bill Belichick kind of overdrafted on there. I think N'Keal Harry was definitely a second rounder in his draft. I'm not saying he would have fallen so far, but I don't think first rounder hindsight 2020 was the guy there. And I say this as someone who did like him out of college. I really did like him out of college, but I was still kind of shocked about the whole first round thing. But I'm with you there. He's super young, and just some of the guys that are available in free agency, according to this list that I'm looking at right now, if it is out of date, well, you people that make these lists better get your stuff together. Demarcus Robinson is also out there. Byron Pringle is also out there. Quintez Cephas is out there.
Isn't he one of the guys that got suspended?
Yeah, he got cut. He got cut by the Lions because he was suspended for a full year for gambling.
Well, Gambler!
I mean, future contract. Just saying.
Calvin Ridley? Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. All right, moving on from that, let's move on to tight end. This will probably be a bit quicker than most of these. The best tight end available, according to this article from CBS Sports, is Cameron Brate. And I'll be real with you, I can't really think of any other tight ends, so I'm not going to disagree with that.
But he didn't play at all last year.
He did play. He did play. According to this, he had 20 catches last year.
Did he?
Yeah. 174 yards.
For who? The Fan Control Football League? Like, come on now. I don't remember being on the field at all. I mean, yeah, the tight end room is very bare. Jeff Swain from the Titans, maybe a possibility, but I'll be honest with you, I don't really see a place where any of these guys can go. I don't. Maybe Cameron Brate goes back to the Bucks, but even that's a big question mark. I don't see it.
It's nothing special. Tight end is easily probably the position where there's the least amount of roster players available at this point. I think every team is just about set in terms of their tight ends.
I think so.
But if we are to just stick with the theme of it here, Cameron Brate, if he could latch on somewhere, Rick says Tampa. What about you, Justin?
That's a good question. I mean, going back to Tampa isn't a terrible shout. What about Cincinnati? I know that they've made some moves with tight ends recently. They signed Irv Smith Jr., but there's not a lot there, and I think they could maybe use some veterans along that offense. I think that would help.
Agreed.
Can't go wrong with a Super Bowl winner.
Yeah. Okay. Well, participant.
He won a Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. No, I thought you were talking about the Bengals for a second.
No,
Brate. No, fair enough. Yeah, no, you guys bring up two pretty good options there. If I had to say one, if this team just needs an extra veteran in that locker room, I would say the Detroit Lions. I don't think that would be a bad team. I think Cameron Brate is just like a nice guy and a good veteran, and I think him in Detroit would just be another guy in that locker room, just for vibes.
I wanted to say the Bengals just signed an undrafted wide receiver free agent who I really want to see on the team next year. His name is Mac Hippenhammer.
Nice.
That will be, if I do poorly, that'll be the jersey that I get this year. A Hippenhammer jersey.
Oh God, that'll be fun. Although I will say this, looking at the list of available tight ends, Mercedes Lewis is still out there, boys. He didn't retire.
Age 40.
Age 40, there we go. I think he has Jets written all over him. You think he's going to play without Aaron Rodgers at this point? Nah, Aaron Rodgers wants his guy. And his name is Mercedes Lewis. All right. Moving on from that, as Rick wishes that Mercedes Lewis would join the Chicago Bears organization, let's let's move on. We're done with the skill position players, but we're not done with the offense here. Let's run through the offensive line here in terms of best available according to this list. We'll start with offensive tackle overall. We're not going to go like left tackle, left guard, all that. No, we're just going to keep it simple. So at tackle, the best tackle left, according to this list from CBS Sports, is Taylor Lewan. Do we agree or disagree, boys?
I mean, he might be, but it's not a direction I'm going in. With his age and his injury history, I think I'm going other places.
Yeah, I'm surprised because I thought that he was retired. I think that's like the logical path for him to go is to retire.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he's my number one. If I desperately need an offensive tackle, I'm not going to him first. I can't tell you who I would go to.
I would say George Fant.
I suppose. I suppose George Fant is the number one after that. Maybe Brandon Shell is there in Miami, but I mean, again, if you're not set right now with your offensive line and you're looking to free agency to fill the void, you are sorry because it's not happening.
Well, I was going to say a team that I think for the most part is set with their O-line unless they decide to trade a guy who is probably going to be off the team by this time next year, would be the Bengals. Jonah Williams has made it clear that he's requested a trade after the signing of Orlando Brown Jr. And I think George Fant there, you could just bring him in to be the backup for now. And if Lyle Collins gets hurt, which we are all expecting, or if you do end up trading Jonah Williams to try to recoup a little bit of value for a guy that you know is going to walk in a year, then we'll see. But again, that depends on how the Bengals do, because I feel like the Bengals are going to run with the mindset here of they're just going to let him walk and just use him up for this one last season. I don't know if they're going to trade him because I think you would have already done it.
I mean, that's a possibility. I'm thinking maybe Philadelphia could use just depth because Lane Johnson's 33. So maybe he's a guy that, they might try and push like a younger tackle in there. I know they have a very good depth already, but what's one more for a team that has everything, right? And, maybe you move somebody else around there to help out with Cam Jurgens and Jason Kelsey in the center position, maybe. So,
well, we need more Cam Jurgens in the lineup, obviously.
Who doesn't need more Cam Jurgens?
The world is better with more Jurgens than them.
Yes,
obviously,
yes.
Except me. Anyways, no, you know who actually just came into my head? The 49ers. Who's going to start for Mike McGlinchey next season because he left to the Broncos?
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
Because Rick, that was a big portion for you last year of how the center position was going to be filled with the departure of Alex Mack, and they did a fairly fine job with it. Now this is a second straight offseason where you're losing an all-pro caliber offensive lineman. Yeah,
I mean, and again, like they're older on the tackle spot anyways. Trent Williams is there; he's 34. They have a guy who apparently went to a college in Mexico. Alfredo Gutierrez is there, so I mean. And they could use some depth, I think. They could use some competition.
Yeah,
for sure.
Justin, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, everyone's saying the Jets need tackles. They've been going left and right. They did lose Font. They've been looking everywhere, but we're gonna have to see who stays healthy and whatnot. These tackles, I think that you're gonna see a lot of action with, maybe in the second month of training camp. When guys start to go down, then you'll see all these guys move.
Agreed. And, well, a guy that I think probably should be signed a little bit sooner than that, the best available guard according to CBS Sports, and I'll definitely agree with this one here because I think he might be one of the younger offensive linemen age-wise in terms of value. Dalton Reisner, 28 years old, coming off a season in 2022 where, according to the article, he was only recorded for giving up 3 sacks and was called for just 1 penalty on 967 offensive snaps, according to Pro Football Focus. How he's a free agent, I don't know. Was the Russell Wilson stain just too much, and it has cost an offensive lineman his career?
He I believe, called the Danger Russ a pathetic attempt for a sandwich, and that kind of ended his spell in Denver, if you will.
I would have signed him immediately if that.
I was going to say, bring him up, give him a lifetime contract for that. I agree with this too. The only other guard that I looked at briefly that I saw on a list who was a guard available was Roger Saffold. And if you're telling me Dalton Risner or Roger Saffold, I'm taking Dalton Risner. I'm sorry. Roger Saffold's a joke. And also much older, I think. Like, what, he's 8
He's
years.
on the other side of 30, right?
Yeah,
Right?
he's almost at 40.
Remember when he was a St. Louis Ram?
Who wasn't a St. Louis Ram? Oh goodness.
Justin, what do you think?
Listen, I can't argue it. When you're going with these, if I'm bringing someone in, it's got to have to be someone that's younger.
Yeah.
And Risner's got that he's in that sweet spot of he's not super old, but he's also got decent amount of experience. So
yeah. I was looking at the list here really quick, Rick, and aside from your boy there in Saffold, Trey Turner is also a potential option there.
Did the Phillies just sign him to a long-term? Try Turner, you mean?
Try, my bad. Try.
Yeah. Oh no. Trey Turner's on the Phillies. I was like, different sport. Plus, too short to be a guard, anyways. Yeah.
Put a solid 150 pounds on him, and we'll see.
Oh yeah, great. And give him the Brendan Fraser fat suit from the Whale. That'd be great. Yeah, love that.
But yes, Try Turner is available according to this list, and he'd probably be the only other guard I would look at aside from Dalton Reisner bringing. But I think it's Reisner.
It's clear. Yeah.
And a distant second is Turner. Speaking of distant seconds here, most likely Rodney Hudson is the best available center. Now, he only played 4 games last season, but he was pretty good in those 4 games. In 284 snaps, only 2 pressures, and a pressure percentage, the P words, ladies and gentlemen, of 1.1% in those 284 snaps. On the older side, obviously, he's probably, I think he's even older than, why is his name escaping me? Taylor Lewan. But at the same time, Rodney Hudson's pretty good. Is he the best center on the list here, boys?
I mean, it's not really a position that I think warrants other sort of discussion. The one thing that I will say, though, is that he probably has one foot out the door because he was planning to retire before last year started. And then, he was put on IR. So it might be a case where he might not even be around or available, but then there's not really a whole lot of other options, I would think. Billy Price is a guy here in Arizona who I think was a backup who might have shown you something, but even then, that's a big question mark there. I think center is one of those tough positions because you have 2 options. You either pick a guy up off the free agent line or you train somebody who's a guard or a tackle to be a center because you need that depth and you can train them on cadences and you can have them work with the center you have. So I don't necessarily, I'll say that he is, but I don't necessarily think that anybody's going to really throw a line out there for this guy. Whereas, a guy like Risner, who we were talking about last, I think the Rams are all in on him, and that would be a great signing for them to get him to pair with Steve Avila, who they drafted, and the guy you were high on in the first round of our mock draft, Jared. So,
yeah, for sure. And wouldn't it be funny if 3 of the guys on this list, according to CBS Sports, might retire at the end of the season? Or not even the end of the season, before the season starts. Taylor Lewan, Rodney Hudson, and Carson Wentz.
Well, there you go.
Justin, any additional thoughts on that, or shall we move on to the defense?
We can move on.
No, there we go. Rodney Hudson, not worth any of Justin's analysis. All right, defensive side of the ball here. Let's get it going according to their list. Defensive end. Any guesses? Any takers? Frank Clark, ladies and gentlemen. That was a rhetorical question on guesses. So Frank Clark is the guy that they will say. Frank Clark last season, very well known in the playoffs, 13.5 career playoff sacks, 3rd most in NFL history, 5 sacks in the regular season last year, well, on 45 pressures and 13 quarterback hits for the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously was cut as a part of the Super Bowl cost saving stuff because the salary cap, while I still say is a social construct, you do sort of have to follow social constructs every once in a while. So Frank Clark, free agent at defensive end. Where could he go, boys?
You know who I think needs a really, really good defensive end?
Are you going to say the Lions or your Bears?
Bear down. Bear down. They've got Dominique Robinson. They've got a few other players, but I believe that this could be a nice fit. This could be a really interesting spot if the Bears do want to add a guy who's got experience. Now, again, he's not a stalwart in the regular season. I think last year in the regular season, he only had 39 total tackles, but he is a playoff machine when it comes to sacking the quarterback. So that is something that you definitely want to have on your team with aspirations for that. And I think the Bears do have aspirations for that. So adding him in there would be a nice add to the crop of DNs that you have. So I'd like to see him on Chicago. I think it'd be a great fit.
What do you think about that, Justin?
Chicago's not a bad shout. What about a team like San Francisco? Pair him up with Nick Bosa, and I know they have Drake Jackson there, but I feel like they could use a little bit more edge there.
Yeah. And more pass rush because they did sign away Hargraves from Philly.
I see what you did there, Justin. Yeah, need more edge.
That's two pretty good selections there. No, yeah, to your point, Rick, I think Frank Clark anywhere would be a boon, and I think especially for a team with massive playoff hopes, that's the call that you got to make there to get a guy that if you are planning to become a playoff caliber team, you would add. If I want to give a team, and this might be a little bit of a dark horse team, but I do believe they'll make the playoffs this year in part because of winning their division. Why not the Jacksonville Jaguars for a nice little run at things? A veteran you add into that locker room, a guy to put opposite of Josh Allen while you maybe try to sack the other Josh Allen in the playoffs, which you are hopeful to get into. I just think he's I think to me the Jaguars. If we're talking about teams that you're supposed to try to get better, I don't know if the Jaguars pass rush necessarily improved by leaps and bounds this offseason. And if you want to talk about a late summer, at least compared to what the NFL calendar is, a late offseason addition to add to the pass rush rotation, why not Frank Clark to that defensive line there? Especially when some of the picks that you've tried to get to help with sacks, aside from Josh Allen for the most part, necessarily haven't panned out. Now, I still think Travon Walker could do well. In that same essence, a veteran there that I think Walker could just learn gobs of talent, information, workout, etc. from would be a Frank Clark. So that's what I would say. A nice little mini push there by the Jaguars. All right, best available defensive tackle according to this article, Matt Ioannidis, guy who left Rick's beloved Washington Commanders, went to the Carolina Panthers, and quickly fell out of favor in Carolina as his amount of snaps did fall off, yet he still was able to get 35 pressures last season and a 10.5% pressure rate for the team. So, Matt Ioannidis, defensive tackle, veteran. Is he the best D tackle left on the board, boys? And if so, where are he going?
It's interesting because there's a few other names that I think you could also throw into this mixture as well. But I think he is, and I would pair him with Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee. I think he'd be an interesting fit there for that defense. I think it would be a nice upgrade for them because they don't really have a whole host of good nose tackles that are there. I mean, I know they have Tyler Shelvin, and I believe they gave Tierre Tart, I believe they gave him the second-round tender. So we'll see about that, but I think that he would be a nice upgrade in that position for them for a defense that I think is going to be on the field a lot because the Titans' offense is woeful at best. So,
if it ain't Derrick Henry running the ball, I don't get much from those boys there.
From old Ryan Tannehill?
Nah, or Malik Willis or Will Levis.
Yeah.
We literally have no idea what the case could be.
None.
Justin, what are we thinking here for Ioannidis? I could see him. I don't even know. I think he'll just be a flyer that a team takes. Whereas Frank Clark, I think a playoff team is going to seek out. I don't know if Ioannidis is in that same essence. I don't know if a team's going to really seek out Matt Ioannidis. Not say he's not going to be on a team. Just he's I think Frank Clark and maybe one or two of the other guys we talked about on the offense side of the ball are going to get more buzz around them than Ioannidis.
Absolutely. Well, also defensive tackle is not it's not a flashy position. The guy on the inside doesn't always get a ton of stats. You just want to stop the run. You want a good run defense percentage, and you want to try and put pressure on the quarterback on the offensive line so the guys on the edge can get around. That being said, a team that needs or still needs some help on the edge, on the interior, might be the Dallas Cowboys. I know they drafted Mazzie Smith in the draft this year. They could use some pressure release for what is wrong with me?
DeMarcus Lawrence?
DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. So, and can you imagine if they had less coverage than they did now?
Be pretty good, especially
Yeah.
considering the season those guys had last year. Dallas is a really good fit for sure. I was wondering because I can't think of the defensive tackle position on this team off the top of my head aside from their main guy Ed Oliver. Do you think Ioannidis to the Bills make sense, or is the D lines just too deep? I see Rick kind of was about to shake his head a little bit there.
Um, I don't. I think there is a little bit too much depth for him to kind of make a statement as a D tackle. If they're trying to move Ed Oliver on the inside, then I think they've got enough of space, for other guys that are there. But there's a lot of D tackles that they have listed on their roster. Cortez Broughton, Cameron Klein, Oliver, who I mentioned, Puna Ford is there too. So he's a good player, but I think that there's just too many bodies there for it to make any sense for them. And again, for Buffalo, if you're going into free agency, if you're going to try and get a guy on a flyer, this is not the position you need somebody in for at the moment. So I wouldn't chance it if I were the Bills.
Copy on that. Well, moving on from there, relatively staying with edge rusher, although this will be a hybrid role, edge rusher / outside linebacker, according to this list. And CBS Sports has Leonard Floyd as the best available player for that specific role. Floyd, pretty good tenure, honestly, with the Rams as a whole. He was just one of those guys. They shed a lot of guys from last season. Obviously, traded Jalen Ramsey, cut straight up Bobby Wagner, and also just cutting Leonard Floyd, guys that they were just unable to find trade partners for. But guys all still very talented. Leonard Floyd, 9 sacks last season for the Rams. As a whole, pretty successful tenure with the Rams. Won a Super Bowl there, contributed. I think 9 sacks may have been his lowest total for a full season with the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. Like he had a good little stint in LA. So what do we think about Leonard Floyd? A, being the best edge rusher / outside linebacker according to this list, and then B, where he could go.
I think Justin's going to be very happy with what I'm about to say here. I think he adds a lot of great versatility to that defense, so I definitely put him at number 1. And for God's sake, Joe Douglas, if you're not going to re-sign Quan Alexander, take Leonard Floyd. Put him on the Jets. I don't know why you're not re-signing Quan Alexander. It's dumb. But if you're not going to do it for whatever reason, then go after Leonard Floyd, because that is a monumental upgrade from what they have at linebacker.
Justin agrees.
Yeah. No, I think Quan Alexander was one of the most underrated players on that defense last year. He really helped bring the team together. And he was one of those guys that when you needed to play, he was always around the ball. If you are going to sign someone, let's go for Leonard Floyd.
Yeah. Floyd, again, I think he's going to be someone that for a late offseason pickup, extremely valuable guy right here. Like you're talking about a veteran, you're talking about a guy that's still contributing well. And again, age, if we play age a little bit, in fact, we're talking about Dalton Risner probably being the best of all the offensive linemen we discussed because he was the youngest of all those guys. Leonard Floyd only recently turning 30 years old. Pretty good. Like that age will probably matter in a good chunk of these. And that right there. A guy who I'm not sure if they list him as edge rusher / outside linebacker. I'm assuming maybe he would. If not, maybe he would have been in the Frank Clark mold. But just one guy I want to mention, Yannick Ngakoue, as a potential option in a similar vein. I think he should probably be. I think he deserves to be mentioned because that dude, while he's bounced around, he's performed well in his career on several teams. So I'm also going to be interested to see where Yannick Ngakoue eventually ends up. I think both of those guys could easily land up in teams that are going for playoff spots, very much so, or even just teams that might be in the middle tier that just need an extra player to clog up a roster spot. Maybe that might more so be an Ngakoue type deal.
I know that the Bears just took him off of their wish list for reasons that I agree with. And I think that the Jets actually are interested, but Ngakoue wants a multi-year deal. So that's a big question mark, is that do you want to spend all that money and give that much of a commitment to a guy who may not pan out in the first year? Aaron Rodgers, say hi.
And well, by the way, really quick on Leonard Floyd, I have him thinking of a team that needs a little bit more pass rush in there. Minnesota Vikings. Hi, how are you? In terms of Leonard Floyd, I think it would be a massive help on the defensive side of the ball because, again, what was ultimately sort of a weakness for that team last season? At times, defense.
Being frauds.
They need, well, yes, they need a little bit more. They need the corner step up this season. They need way more pass rush. It cannot just be Danielle Hunter and his band of merry men there. And they cut a linebacker, if I'm not mistaken, earlier in the offseason, Kendricks. And while Floyd is not a linebacker in the same way Kendrick's more of a inside middle linebacker as opposed to Floyd, excuse me, who's a outside guy. Minnesota could use a guy like Leonard Floyd for sure. Speaking of using a guy who is A, pretty good, and B, young, Deion Jones, coming off his lone season in Cleveland. Not flashy in terms of the stats, but an interception, 2.5 sacks last season. Very quick decline for him in his career after what was a pretty hot start in Atlanta, where he did end up he did have a Pro Bowl selection. He was known as one of the really good young inside linebackers, excuse me. But whether it be injuries, just play, fit, whatever you want to say and point to that has contributed to this, he is not as valued as he was early in his career, but I think he can still be a pretty good player. And again, if we're talking about age, he's not 30 yet. So this is a guy that teams should, again, another valuable late offseason pickup here. What do you guys think? I mean, you mentioned Quan Alexander not being with the Jets anymore. Quan Alexander, I think, is more, if I'm not mistaken, he's not more of an inside linebacker. And if you want to talk about inside linebacker fits, would it not be Deion Jones that you signed for that role?
The precipitous fall, though, in his stats last year is just really concerning for me. I think in 2021, the guy had 137 tackles. And last year, because he was hurt, he only had 44. So that's a pretty big fall off. I'm almost curious to know if you can't make an outside linebacker an inside linebacker, because Anthony Barr is out there too. And he's a guy that could be a nice fit for a team. He was the centerpiece of the Vikings defense before they became frauds and threw him away to the Cowboys. So I think those are opportunities and options. And you know what? I think the Commanders might be also be in the need for a linebacker as well, because I look at their defense and their defensive line looks pretty solid, but I look at the rest of like their unit and they need some help. So maybe a linebacker like a Deion Jones or maybe an Anthony Barr could be of bigger help to them. And I mean, again, I don't know necessarily why I'm gonna harp on this, and I think Justin will be happy if I harp on this. If there is no turnover for not re-signing Quan Alexander, then what are we doing in New York? Because let me tell you something. If that's the hole that takes the Jets away from being a playoff Super Bowl contender, we're all going to look back on that and say, we told you so.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Quan Alexander will be the whole. I mean, like I said, I think he played really well last year. I would love to have him back. He was the third linebacker there. So I don't think the third linebacker is making or breaking your Super Bowl hopes. I would hope. If it is, you screwed up. But there's other guys out there. We've mentioned a few. And I'm not super worried. I also think that the Jets, who do have, I think, among the top amounts of cap space left for this season, will make moves once that Quinnen Williams deal is done.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking really quick of linebackers that played well in New York last season, another guy inside/middle linebacker I feel is worth mentioning because he's even younger than Deion Jones is Jalen Smith. 88 total tackles last season out there for the New York Giants. He is also finding himself as a free agent now, a guy who has dealt with, really since he entered the NFL, he's been pretty consistent health-wise. 16 straight games started in a row from 2018 to 2020. Bounced around on a couple of different teams last season where the Cowboys just didn't see fit his contract anymore. But he latched onto the Giants at the end of 2021, played relatively well, came back in 2022, and again, played relatively well. Jalen Smith, maybe he's a guy that someone like the Jets could take a look at.
He's also a genius. Like there's an article that I was reading about him where they're saying like 80% of NFL players are bankrupt after just 2 years of retirement. And this guy's opening a ramen bar on the Notre Dame campus.
That's
like he is a business savant. So you know what, Jalen, I give you this idea. If it don't work out, if you don't get signed here, just take a year and just make your business ventures. Stash some money in the Caymans. Everyone's doing it. Go for it. Have some fun.
Jesus Christ. Well, maybe
everyone's doing it.
He said everyone's doing it as if that applies to most regular people. And I know Jalen Smith ain't regular, but still. I was going to say, as 3 bachelor degree earners here, and somebody on the show is earning even more. Jalen Smith and ramen on a college campus. God, how has no one thought to do that already?
That's brilliant.
How are we not hearing that more? Because
it's brilliant.
That's that's gold. That's a gold mine right there.
Yeah.
To say the very least. All right, let's go to the defensive back room on this list. Number one corner available is Marcus Peters on the on the list here in terms of still needing a job. His run in Baltimore coming to the end, as we know earlier in the offseason, the Ravens got Rock Ya-Sin, which basically spelled an end for Peters this time and potential to come back there. Former All-Pro player, former Pro Bowl player, interception machine for the most part in his career. But that being said, he did have a career low, just one interception last season in 13 games. So a little bit of a down year total-wise. Where is the value in Marcus Peters? I'm sure there's still someone that's going to view it out there. If I just want to mention this guy really quick because I ultimately agree with the Peters selection, but if this guy hadn't missed all of last season, I would probably say Byron Jones is the guy. If Byron Jones had just played like 6 games and still had gotten cut, I would have given maybe him a nod. But because he missed literally the entirety of last season, and there was the article that came out earlier in the offseason that he basically blasted the, well, NFL medical staff, but especially the Dolphins medical staff. Will a team bring that in? Potentially still. You never know.
People had issues with the Dolphins medical staff last year?
No,
I know. It's so shocking. They have such great reviews on ZocDoc.
But yeah, so Byron Jones, I would say, had he played at least a modicum of the regular season last year, I think I would have had him. I think I would argue for him to be the number one, but Peters probably most would say is the number one corner on this list. So, Justin, where do you think Marcus Peters could land?
There's a lot of teams that could use some secondary help. I would think he tries to go to a playoff team, maybe somewhere in the division. How about maybe as a recurring theme today? How about Cincinnati?
Hey, I like that. That was also my pick right there because I think Marcus Peters. I think the Bengals need secondary help. I'm shocked that the Bengals haven't really, at least it doesn't feel like they've addressed the secondary as much as they should have this offseason, especially with the fact that they lost Von Bell in free agency. They also lost Jesse Bates in free agency. So I don't know who the hell is starting at the safety position for the Cincinnati Bengals this next season. If your safety core is weak, you need at least something in the corners, and Marcus Peters could certainly help on that end.
Let's try and right a wrong from the 2023 NFL draft here. Vegas.
Ooh.
Because did they miss on drafting one of these top tier corners this year?
Yeah.
So how about the guy who has the second most interception return for touchdowns based upon current active players in the NFL? Justin's list, Marcus Peters. How about him?
So Peters to Vegas makes sense. He definitely would fit the vibe there. Another guy I want to mention here as potential, next best corner on that list, Ronald Darby, who just a solid veteran throughout the entirety of his career. Former Super Bowl champion, as he did play on the Eagles team that beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl those years ago. Former Washington football team player, as he played with the football team in 2020 season. And in the last 2 seasons on the Denver Broncos, starting for a secondary that the secondary ain't the reason they was losing games last year. We know the reason why, and that man had a Subway sandwich made after him. So Darby is also a guy that I think, and to your point, Justin, if the Bengals think that Peters maybe doesn't necessarily fit things, if they want more of a guy that could just come into the locker room a bit more seamlessly, they feel, I think then Darby would be the guy that the Bengals would go after, just for argument purposes, because I think both those guys should be getting jobs pretty soon.
I didn't take the seamless transitions into account. I thought more of a team that could use a cornerback.
No, well, technically, we could say that for both. The Bengals need a corner, and Peters fits. But also, if internally they want a guy that maybe is more head to the ground, they'll probably go with Darby. So, but that being said, let's move on from there. That was the cornerback position. Unless any of you boys have any other names to throw out there.
No, I'm good.
Nope. All right. Safety position. Adrian Amos is the best available safety according to this list. Bit of a sort of rough year in Green Bay, you would say. Most Packers fans would say that it was his toughest. The last 2 years were a bit tough for him, as he allowed 12 passing touchdowns in coverage over the last 2 seasons, not just one. That would be really bad if it was just last year, but no, over the last 2 seasons, he's had some troubles, and a career worst in completion rate allowed when being the main defensive back on a targeted pass. So it was tough for Adrian Amos, but he did have 102 tackles last season, which not bad. What do you guys think about Adrian Amos, the former Chicago Bear, the former Green Bay Packer? So clearly he just stays in the NFC North. So is he going to be a Lion or a Viking next season, boys?
Nope.
No.
Vikings.
Hey, they do need veterans in the secondary.
They need everything.
They do. The New York Giants
Ooh.
need safety help. And if you're not going to try and bring back Landon Collins, which I think is maybe a smart idea, I would try and get him. There's another guy who's younger, Sean Chandler, who was undrafted and signed by the Giants a while ago. But I think if the Giants want to help out, like Xavier McKinney and Jason Pinnock, you bring in Adrian Amos, and that's the guy.
There's another young guy that's out there in free agency, Rick. John Johnson.
Who the hell is John Johnson?
27-year-old who played for the Browns the last 2 years.
That doesn't help me. Who like what?
He's one of the guys that surprisingly cashed out in the COVID offseason.
This is like hold on. This is like when what's his face? Hold on. Tyler Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Remember him?
Yes.
When he got that, what was the deal that he got from the Heat?
Well, no. The Nets offered it to him, and we matched it.
Right. So
because the Nets were scumbags and were doing that to everyone that got.
But what was the deal? 4 years, $50 million.
$50 million.
Who the hell is he?
Well, John Johnson is a guy who signed a 3-year, $33 million deal 2 seasons ago and got cut by the Browns.
I swear, sometimes I feel like these GMs spin their own damn wheel of chaos and find a random name and give somebody from like Podunk, Idaho, a $33 million contract.
John Johnson is the most like generic user-created name I've ever seen.
No.
We have against Podunk, Idaho.
A lot of things, but that's another day.
Justin, he already feuds with international countries. We don't need to have domestic issues now on the show.
Don't blame me.
I'm not, but let's just keep the secrets of his apparent hate for the state of Idaho.
Hateful man.
Keep it internal.
Yeah, well, that's what it is.
Oh my God, Rick!
There's actually no Podunk in Idaho, so I can't be mad at them. They don't exist.
Look, leave John Johnson alone. And he did not go to Podunk in Idaho. He was born in Hydesville, Maryland.
Same thing.
And he went to Boston College.
I don't care. Even worse.
God damn it. All right, well, let's finish off this list here with by the way, any more safeties to name?
Oh.
No, I've named them all.
Yeah, I good. Yeah.
All right. Hey, look, I want to do the due diligence of the show. Speaking of due diligence, kicker, Robbie Gould is the best available kicker according to this list. 40 years old, still one of the best kickers in the game. 27 of 34 on field goal attempts last season, 50 of 51 on extra point attempts. And he still never missed a kick in his postseason career. 29 of 29 field goals and 39 of 39 on extra points. We did see a little bit of a kicker transaction over the last week or so in terms of Brendan McManus being cut by the Broncos before he was immediately signed. Who's going to get Robbie Gould?
I mean, Denver or Dallas, the two teams that need kickers, I think, right now, because Elliott Fry is not a worthy kicker, and Tristan Vizcaino is not strong either. I do want to say one thing. I'm going to stick up here for Brett Maher.
Okay.
I understand that he had the yips and he had the shanks. It happens. Before that incident, the guy was one of the most automatic kickers in all of pro football. And I think that there's a case to be made for him reclaiming his career and going to Denver. Because I feel like if you can learn to kick in the high altitude in Denver, or you can recapture yourself in Denver, you'll be fine elsewhere. Matt Prater did pretty well outside of Denver, I think. Jason Elam, when he finally left Denver, was okay, but he was 42, so fine. Robbie Gould might be the best kicker available, but listen, Brett Maher is 7 years younger than him. There's definitely more in the tank for Brett Maher than there is for Robbie Gould. So I want to see this reclamation story. I'll even say this. I'll even say, you know what, Brett Maher, I want to say to you, why don't you come to Chicago? We'll boot Cairo Santos and give you the starting spot. Let's go. Let's have some fun. You know what, Justin, why don't you take him and knock Legatron out? Give Brett Maher a shot. Give Brett Maher a chance.
Why would I do that?
I don't know.
What about Mason Crosby?
Who?
Mason Crosby?
We want good. We want good kickers here, Justin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cairo Santos
was a legend for a while, and
he's done, dude. He should have been done after that game a few years ago when he missed what? Didn't he miss 5 field goals in the game?
Something like that.
Like he should have been done then.
Where's Cody Parkey? I want him back.
Where is Cody Parkey actually?
He's a free agent.
That's one way to describe it.
He's probably a kicking coach for U Chicago Junior College football or something like that. I don't know.
Okay, what about Roberto Aguayo?
Oh, how about Rodrigo Blankenship with the glasses?
Look, hey, Spec should be on a goddamn team.
Yeah, okay.
Spec should be on a goddamn
Also,
team.
why is there no punters on this list, Jared? You gotta do an inquiry here.
Look,
Where are
this
my
is-
long snappers?
this is
Yeah,
this-
exactly. Long snappers.
Look, I filed a complaint to CBS Sports. I was able to do that because of my work email, and they have not gotten back to me. Just saying.
Oh, actually, I have the list of free agent punters here. If you'd like.
Well, please, because apparently CBS Sports is not good enough at their job.
Well, there's one,
Ah,
and it's Andy Lee.
yeah, you know what? Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair.
That makes him the best available.
It does.
very
He's the
true.
best available.
All right, where does Andy Lee go next season, boys?
Are
Um,
they starting NFL Europe again?
Well,
Because he can go there.
I like Justin home.
Yes, he does go home. I like that too. man.
Oh my god. Oh, okay. Well, on that humorous note, that completes this list, ladies and gentlemen, of the best players available by position according to this article from our friends. Are they really our friends when they forget punters at CBS Sports? For the most part, good chunk of disagreements, but they had some hits in there in terms of who was available.
I think too this list will also change because there's a big name out there who hasn't been cut yet, but it's trending towards that way. Dalvin Cook.
Yes.
I don't see why, but I guess so.
I mean, I think he's better than Zeke.
Everywhere except for Minnesota. And while I'm not saying it's not a possibility, I mean, we just saw DeAndre Hopkins get cut. It doesn't make any sense for me that they would cut Dalvin Cook.
But Justin, it's the Vikings. When did they ever do anything that makes sense?
That's why I said I didn't say it couldn't happen. I just said it doesn't make any sense to me.
It's also fun.
They're going to sign Aaron Rodgers in 2 years as the Jets retread because that's just how Green Bay quarterbacks go. That's how it goes.
He's not fully wrong there, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to say, honestly, if some of the defensive players we named in particular, like the Vikings should be calling at least half these guys to freaking
think
start on
so,
that
right?
goddamn team.
You'd
Leonard
think so.
Floyd, Marcus Peters,
Yeah.
like they need talent.
Yeah.
Goddamn, even Byron Jones. Byron Jones would be better than half the schlubs they had in the secondary last season.
Well, they do.
And he hasn't played.
Yeah, it's accurate.
Like
It's accurate.
so very ultimately, last thing, any names that we did not mention on that list that you boys want to give attention to that as a free agent. Again, DeAndre Hopkins was the best wide receiver on that list, ladies and gentlemen, but we spoke about him last week. Please watch last week's episode. And thus we were not going to do a whole other segment about that. So aside from D-Hop, who we already discussed in this entire list, anyone that has not been named that you just want to say, hey, they're a free agent.
Well, I mean, Jadeveon Clowney's still there.
Mhm.
And I
Any
have
good players, Rick?
Well, I was gonna say I have a sinking feeling that after the Ndamukong Suh nonsense, that he's gonna go to the Philadelphia Eagles this year, like a midseason pickup because why not?
They'll just add anyone to the defensive line.
I mean, you would, wouldn't you, when you're that good of a team? Yeah, I mean, I don't really think there's much of anybody else that I can think of.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. No,
Well-
not really anybody else.
Good stuff, lads. It's all been handled. It's all been done. And now we just wait for the NFL signing fun because, well, some guys could still get signed here. Problem,
Okay,
Rick?
Dr. Seuss.
I'm a
God.
poet. I'm a poet, and you didn't even know it, Rick. Now, come on, you knew that one was coming.
Yeah, that's
All right, let's end off the show as we do on a weekly basis. This is probably my favorite segment on a weekly basis. As the knuckles crack, as he starts
They did,
to warm
didn't
up.
they?
Yes, as he starts to warm up a la Brock Lesnar before a big fight. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the Rostrum Podium because he's here to rant.
Gotta do this live. Yeah, honorable mention, Long Island Roads. You suck. Number 3. Here we go. Al Pacino is going to be in the news right now because Al Pacino is an Academy Award-winning actor, and he's an 83-year-old man who somehow, some way, got his 29-year-old girlfriend pregnant. Now, there's a couple of things I want to say about this. Number one, modern science is just a beautiful thing, isn't it? You know, that this child, when they're born, before they even turn 16, their father will be dead because Pacino will be, if Pacino's alive, he'll be 99. And there's not a lot of people who make it to 99, okay? So let's just call it what it is here. Number 2, I was going to say, so this kid's going to graduate high school and go to college. And then I thought to myself, no, you know what? He's a Pacino. He won't go to college. Pacinos don't go to college. They just go right into the acting world. And number 3, with this whole thing, this might have been a joke, but whatever. He asked his girlfriend to take a paternity test to prove that he was the father. First of all, Now, there's a point and a counterpoint to this. You're an 83-year-old man. Be glad you even performed at all. That's my number one. Number two, he does have a point. I mean, this girl's been with Mick Jagger before, so you never really know what's swimming around in there. So, could not be, could be someone else's. I don't know. But, fair point to you, Pacino. Number two, let's talk about the English Premier League of football, or soccer if you're an American like us. One of the best stories coming out of the championship, yes, De Niro's having a kid too. You're absolutely right about that. De Niro is having a kid as well, and Pacino. What's going on with this world? One of the best stories from the EPL and championship was that the tiny little team of Luton Town made the top flight of the EPL for the first time ever. Luton Town Soccer Stadium is called Kenilworth Road. And literally, it is a stadium that was built into a neighborhood. The away stands where the visiting teams sit literally takes you through an alleyway between two homes. Now, the English Premier League is basically saying to Luton Town, hey, we need to upgrade your stadium. Why? Because of luxury boxes, because of VAR, because of, coaches' boxes, all that sort of stuff. I understand the VAR stuff, but don't take away this 10,000 seat gem in the middle of Luton Town, which is going to create the best possible, atmosphere for a Manchester United fan who's drunk off their butt to go walking up and fall over into someone's rose garden. Like, come on now. Why do we have to do everything just because money, and all of this? Luton Town should keep their stadium the way that it is. I get it. It's old and decrepit and creaky, but you know what? That's the charm of things. That's what makes things beautiful. We keep redoing buildings and putting hats on hats, and what do we have? Pacino and De Niro with kids. That's what we have, and it's not working at all. And now, number one, this is personal. This is very, very personal for me. I want to talk to you about TV commercials and YouTube commercials. Speaking of being on YouTube. So the YouTube commercial I've seen the most often is the one with Verizon, with Cecily Strong talking to somebody about being, cutting the cables and, the brand new Wi-Fi boxes they have. So let me ask you a question. If you were to go walk into somebody's house on a random Wednesday afternoon, just to say hi and what's up, would you then go to them and say, oh, hey, nice Verizon router. I see you cut the cables. You have 2 gig internet? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, good for you. Faster internet speeds. No one has conversations like that. It's not normal. Like make them more normal. And to that end, the Stop and Shop commercial that is now on right now, there is some terrible behavior in the Stop and Shop commercial. There's a kid who goes up to the conveyor belt with a register, and in full view of the register, the sales clerk, he flings the can of peas down the conveyor belt like he's rolling it down there. Like, kid, what are you doing? If that thing gets into the cashier and breaks the computer, you got to pay for that stuff. So that's going to be that $4.95 can of peas because Price is Right rules, right? So now they're going to cost you like $20,000 worth of damage, all because you are a stupid child who decided to go roll that can of peas like it was a Pinewood Derby car in Boy Scouts. Like, what are we doing? Why are commercials not realistic? I'll tell you which one's more realistic, which is scary. The one with the Lumi deodorant one, the one with the woman who's like, it helps the pits, the underboob, the butt crack, all that sort of stuff. Like, it's 10:30, ma'am, and I'm eating my ice cream. I don't want to hear about your stinky deodorant and your bad situations, okay? Leave me alone. Let me watch Family Feud in peace. Thank you for your time and your interest. Speaking of which, Adam, dear friend of mine, Adam. Adam, I understand that you've been a Bears fan longer than I have, and I appreciate the fact that you have a very, very significant sense of being a Bears fan, and I get this. But Adam, 12 wins, what are you doing? Why are you making it so difficult to be your friend? Like, I have to pull you back from the ledge that you're on, thinking you can fly, because you can't. The Bears are not going to win 12 games this year. I, as a Bears fan, know this for a fact. They're going to win 11. So get it right. It's not 12. It's 11. No, I'm kidding. But Adam, please, put some more thought into your picking of your games, okay? The Bears are not going to go 5-1 their division this year. It's not going to happen. So please, for my sake, to your sake, as a Bears fan to a Bears fan, please get off the Duncan because you're high as F. Thank you very much.
And as we are about to finish an episode with no international related incidents and callouts whatsoever, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is the perfect way to end the show. On this week's edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, got a little bit of more NFL content out of the dry fountain within the Sahara Desert that it is. What will be our oasis next week for stuff to talk about? Who the hell knows? But please do be sure to join us on the program as always. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. We'll be back next week. We'll be back the week after. We'll be back every single week because the trudge to the next NFL season is slow, long, and yes, very painful. But we're less than 100 days away, and that's what we live for here on the show. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the show where we're all about fun, football, and chaos. Take care.